Welcome back to All G's, sometimes AllG'sReact. AllG'sReact, and we're gonna be watching Mr. Thomas Sowell. For some of y'all, I said Sowell, but that was my fault. I just said it how I saw it. I ain't never heard it said before.
Yeah.
But Thomas Sowell
Sowell
is his actual name, and we're gonna get into reparations. I think this will be a good conversation. All right. Let's go ahead and check out what he has to say.
Reparations. We began by talking about disparate impact, the idea that discrimination is so deeply embedded in the American experience that it can take place even in the absence of an intention to discriminate. So this argument, which is that there's some basic flaw or sin that's still with us, comes up in the case for reparations. Longish quotation, but it sets something up. From Ta-Nehisi Coates in an article in The Atlantic entitled "The Case for Reparations." White supremacy is not merely the work of hot-headed demagogues, but a force so fundamental to America that it is difficult to imagine the country without it. And so we must imagine a new country. Reparations is the price we must pay to see ourselves squarely. The wealth gap merely puts a number on something we feel but cannot say, that American prosperity was ill-gotten and selective in its distribution. What I'm talking about is more than recompense for past injustices. What I'm talking about is a national reckoning that would lead to spiritual renewal. Close quote. And Tom Sowell makes what of that?
Well, it tells me that I've made the right decision not to read The Atlantic for decades. Slavery is a very big subject. I have in my home an entire bookcase of books about slavery in various parts of the world, various times of history. And the sad fact is that slavery has been a universal institution for thousands of years, as far back as you can trace human history. And what we're looking at is if slavery is something that happened to one race of people in one country, when in fact the spread of it was around the world. In 1776, which is when Adam Smith published The Wealth of Nations, as well as when the United States got started, he said that Western Europe is the only place in the world where there is no slavery. And even the Western Europeans had vast numbers of slaves in the Western Hemisphere,
yes,
but not in Western Europe itself. And so if you're going to have reparations for slavery, it's going to be the greatest transfer of wealth back and forth, and cross-hauling, as they say in the railroads, because the number of whites, for example, who were enslaved in North Africa by the Barbary pirates exceeded the number of Africans enslaved in the United States and in the American colonies before that, put together. But nobody is going to North Africa to ask for reparations because nobody is going to be fool enough to give it to them. Here we have intellectuals who can imagine a different history from the rest of the world, even though it's so similar to the rest of the world.
If you own a gun.
So,
that's a transition.
that's a big transition. Let me close. We don't need that no more. Get rid of that. All right. So, what do you make of that?
There's kind of a lot to unpack. So, obviously, when you're taught slavery in schools, you're taught it only from a black-white perspective. You know, blacks were slaves, white people had slaves. That's it.
Right.
As you get older, if you still are in a quest for knowledge and you find out that blacks had slaves here too, whites had white people as slaves, blacks had some white people as slaves, how do you even fix that? When we're talking about slavery reparations and what was promised to us, it almost feels futile. And the reason why I says it's futile is because when I say we, I'm talking about the United States of America, we didn't even honor what we said we was going to do with the Native Americans. You know how many treaties that we signed with the Native Americans once we said we're going to take your land and move you here, and then nobody's going to attack you. This is going to be your land. Oh, snaps, there's gold there, so we're going to come and take you. We're going to constantly do that. The state that I live in, Oklahoma, was called Native America for a reason until there was oil here.
We're on tribal land right now.
Yeah. It actually was a case not too long ago that just said like a good third of our state is actually still belongs to the Muskogee Nation.
That was like a couple months ago.
Yeah. A third of our state under this treaty belongs to it. That's a different side story. It's not going to happen. And the reason why it's not going to happen is because you're going to have different sects of people that you're going to see who got money that you feel like shouldn't. You know, then you start playing the race superiority card. Like, oh, my people were treated worse than that. Sounds good in concept. And it's not like that, you know, I am ignorant to what happened at all.
Right.
But I also understand what day and time I live in and what country I live in as well.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Set the realist aside because we both know it won't happen, right? But do you think there should be?
Logically, yes. Feelings, no. Logically, the reason I say that is because, hey, this is the rules that you set forth. I'm going to use this person for this amount of time. This person is property, yada, yada, yada. Because at first, you know, we wasn't even defined as, we was cattle. We had no rights whatsoever. Had nothing. Okay, and then once we turned into, was it the 13th Amendment? Okay, now we're people, this is what you're promised or whatever. It's like, okay, well then follow the law. But we already know you're not following the law because you didn't follow the law according to other people.
Right. That's true.
So you're fighting an uphill battle to where it's like, you know, you got a Native American crying in the corner. You know, you got this black person with like whips all over him. And then you got the person who's in charge kind of being like, I don't see nothing. But you run your book, man.
Yeah.
Fuck that book.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
I would say that Atlantic Passage, I don't know how people feel about reparations, right? But from the people that I talk to, it's not that. It's not that. There probably are some. I'm not going to say there isn't. But it's not that. Most of the people I talk to, the reason the reparation conversation is even a conversation is because America has had a nice, long history of squaring and righting their wrongs with everyone else except for natives and blacks. The only two. Remember Pearl Harbor?
Yeah.
Remember they locked up all the Japanese Americans?
Yes.
They were allotted once that was over. Remember, people died there, people was tortured, all that type of stuff happened in them encampments. When that was over, them people were allotted $20,000 checks.
Really?
By our government, yes. They cut checks because it was wrong. Right? It was an infringement on your rights as an American. Okay? That has never been the case when it comes to black and Native Americans in this country. For some reason, it's just like, well, you know,
what can we do? That's the past. You know, we're moving forward. You know, you got some rights.
They cut checks to send Jewish people who fled back to Israel.
Really?
They just dumped a bunch of money in that. Everyone's getting something. Everyone's getting something except for natives and blacks for some reason. So
natives get certain licenses. Blacks don't get nothing.
I mean, even their taxes is lower. You pay for your tag on a car, and you got that card. You're hardly paying nothing.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're really subsidized as far as their medical stuff too.
That too.
So even if there's a tier of who will pay back and who will do something for, blacks is like, oh yeah, food stamps. Just make sure you get the man out that house. We'll give you some food stamps.
Here you go. You got to follow these rules.
Yeah, we'll give you some welfare.
This welfare.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're never going to get a check. And to be honest with you, I would never even want no check written for no reparations for black people. Me, I would say 80 years. If you're black, you get 80 years federal tax free.
That's what I want. Give me tax-free.
Tax-free. Federal tax-free. And if you take this, you can't get no more assistance. So you can't get no food stamps, you can't get nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be based on how much you work to take advantage of that tax-free. You still got to pay for your state tax because that's different than federal. But federal tax-free. I say 80 years is what you get. That way, because some people don't really know, and I know y'all think like everyone in the hood or whatever is like just trying to game the system for assistance and food stamps and all that type of stuff, blah, 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 blah. There is a list of rules and regulations you have to follow to get it. These people can't take the extra 10, 15 hours at their job, or they're going to be kicked off of their food stamps.
Oh yeah, you'll get. Oh, you make too much money. Oh, you're off the Section 8 housing. You need to go find another place. Bye.
And they can't do that with what they make.
Yeah.
And there's not glorious, high-paying jobs for everybody. Like for some reason, the extreme right like to feel like there is, because there isn't. I don't know why that's a thing, but it's not glorious, high-paying jobs everywhere for everybody. Some people are in towns where that little economy only pushes out so much money.
There's a sawmill and a Family Dollar, and maybe a neighborhood, 30 miles away, and that's about it.
And maybe a Walmart.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Neighborhood Walmart, maybe 30 miles away, and that's it.
And that's it. That's all you getting. So how are you going to go get a home or get off of your assistance to do something when you barely making it with your assistance already?
True.
I feel like if there was ever going to be something, tax-free, federal, 80 years, and that'd be it. That way you still got to work. Because when I worked my butt off, and they was like, oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Filed, they was like, oh, thank you again. I was like, gosh, $20,000 gone.
Yeah. You're still working for the system, essentially. You're just a different part of that system. But once again, this kind of jumps to what we talked about in a few videos ago about how Black Wall Street or any type of black community that starts like, okay, fine, government, you're gonna treat us like that. Fine, we're gonna section ourselves off, and then we're gonna do our own thing. No, we can't have you doing that.
Nope.
We can't have y'all coming together. We can't have y'all taking care of each other. We can't have these Black Panthers marching down the street, making sure everybody's fed and stuff like that. We can't have none of that.
Nope.
And we gotta come and essentially blow shit up.
Yep.
We gotta go break that all down.
We gotta bring in the drugs.
Yeah.
We gotta do all this.
We gotta make sure to keep you at a certain level, which is crazy. The whole notion of reparations, because we couldn't get anything, because you have people out there being like, oh, you just lazy, you just want money, you want tax money, blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, first of all, you can get that up out of here, because we've already shown as a people multiple times that we can do things on our own without the government. But every time that we do, the government ends up coming in.
Yeah.
And in some shape or form, always keeps coming in and disturbing what we got going on.
Exactly. So, as far as the video goes, I completely understand what Mr. Thomas Sowell is saying, but I would really like to see him sit down with someone who's going to give him some actual pushback, because
I don't want like echo chamber.
You can easily deflect, because this guy is talking about the United States.
Yeah.
So then he starts bringing about what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it's like, I don't care about the world. I care about the contract, because if I was there, and I wouldn't say devil's advocate, but if I was to say some pushback, like, yeah, I understand that. I understand what you're saying. Slavery has happened all across the world, but did that part in Africa have a contract with those people saying that after you do this work, you're supposed to get 40 acres and a mule? Or did they say, hey, you just got conquered, you're a slave, and that's it. We're going to take you, we're going to breed you, we're going to kill you off, and then, away with you.
That right there is what I would like to see. Once you start pushing a person, really pushing, keep them on base, because once you start generalizing a bunch of stuff, it's easy to get out of questions.
Oh yeah, well,
it's
slavery happened everywhere.
Well, it was everywhere. The
That's generally what the right does.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Blacks had slaves. So what about that? No. We're talking about the land.
Yeah.
If we had certain land that was our land, that you said, okay, especially the natives, if this is our land, you made an agreement to it. We have a treaty from you guys that's saying that this is our land. Why didn't you honor that treaty? Well, anyways,
boy,
if you try to argue with the law, and the law is still on your side, but they don't uphold themselves to the own law that they've written, then you already know you're in a rigged system.
Yeah.
It's manifest destiny. It's kind of like, what you gonna do about it? That's essentially what they're saying.
Anyways, I would really like to see Mr. Thomas Sowell get a little bit more pushback. I think this interviewer is not really doing his job, or maybe he's just there to allow that person. I don't know what type of interviews people set up, but for me,
somebody's gonna look at him like, I agree.
Yeah, for me, no. I want you. We're not talking about the world. We're talking about the United States. So let's talk about that. I'm happy you have a bookshelf full of books on slavery around the world, but we're talking about what happened here in the States with these people. And here's this fact. You see what I'm saying?
He needs to go against like a constitutional lawyer. I would like to see like a black constitutional lawyer and him debate, not argue, but debate and be like, okay, well, you got books and stuff like that, but section this states that yada yada yada.
Right.
Well, back in South Africa, they had the apartheid. I don't want to care about that.
We're not talking about.
Yeah.
We're not talking about. That's not what we're talking about. I'm sorry. But yeah, I would really like to see that. If y'all know anywhere I can find some of those type of interviews, because for me personally, that's the interviews I like to watch the most. I want people to challenge other people on their ideas, because it brings them out of comfort. It also keeps things that people can just generalize and just dismiss. It keeps you focused on it. So anyway, I'm Nixon.
I'm Sir Cash.
And we out.
Peace.
We are getting good.